In this video I'm going to be demonstrating how I made a slide cam of a piece of wood and some old microwaves. Warning: use care when working with power tools and electricity. Here I'm just going to start by taking the plate out of the microwave so it doesn't flop around when I turn it over. Pulling out all the screws. Taking the top off. Now to pull the bottom off. And there's the motor I want. Pulling it off. So this one unfortunately is 24 volts AC instead of 120 AC. So here's another microwave. This time I'm just going to jump in from the bottom quickly. There's the motor. Removing the motor. And there you go. 120 VAC. Now if you don't have a 3D printer, you can just use this piece instead. You also want to take all the good components out of a microwave whenever you have one disassembled. For example here, these switches, they're very useful. Will come in later. Now I'm just going to make the wheels in Fusion 360. I'm going to start by just setting the size of the ball bearings, and then I'm going to make the outside. If you don't have ball bearings, you could just make a smaller hole and just put a nail in, and that would work as a frictioned bearing, but I had ball bearings, so I'm just going to use them. I'm going to just bevel the edges so that it doesn't get caught in the track when I'm running it. Now to just print it on my Tevo Tarantula in black PLA. And there they are, and here are my bearings. I'm just going to heat up the tires and pressure fit the ball bearings using a hammer for a snug fit. Seems to work good. On to the rest. That looks good. Here's a piece of wood that I'm going to use. It's nice and smooth, so I hopefully have a smooth track. And I'm just marking off my 3-inch piece. This will be my little cart. Cutting it off. Now to make it lighter, I decided to use a narrower track, so I'm just cutting a strip off here, so it's not as heavy to carry around. You do want it wider if you have a heavy camera, but I don't think I'm going to need that. Just marking the center of my track and the center of my board so I can get it all lined up properly. Putting a washer in place and marking where I'm going to have my tire tracks. Then I'm just going to use the tire itself and mark where I need the track to be. Now do this for the other side. Now I'm just going to figure out where I want the tracks measurement wise, so I can set that with the saw. I'm just running my little groove into the board. Now setting for an extra wide track, making sure I've got the width right. Adding the second cut. I made my tires narrow enough that I could get away with only 2 cuts, so that was helpful. And there it is, and they seem to fit nicely. Now I just need to decide how to mount them, so I'm just going to mark where they fit when they're at the bottom of the track. Now I'm just measuring and I'm moving my numbers up a bit so that I can have a bit of gap between the boards, so it's not just sliding. Marking my height. I'm just arbitrarily picking how far in on each side you want. The farther away you have them, the more stable of a cart you have. Now for the other sides, I'm just going to pre-drill it so it's easier and I don't risk splitting the wood. Now, don't forget the washer or the tires could rub on the side of the wood. Just keeps them off a little bit. Screwing them all in place. Making sure they all turn nicely. Make sure it's good and smooth. Now for the end of the board, I need a pulley. So I just printed another tire, except with a notch in it, pre-drilling for it. Now remember to use a washer here too, anywhere you want the ball bearings to run smoothly. Screwing it in place. Now to mount the motor on the other side, I'm just going to clamp it so it doesn't shake while I'm cutting. Now I'm just going to mark out where I want the motor. Now I was going to use a jigsaw to cut it out, but then last minute I changed my mind and decided to use a router so I don't have to cut all the way through to leave a nicer finish on the bottom. Now just to router it out. Both the jigsaw and the router would have the same effect, but I thought maybe the router would be a little bit easier to fine-tune. And there it is. Seems to fit smoothly. Pressing it in place. Now just pre-drilling my mounting screws. Securing it in place with some screws. Now I'm just going to pre-drill for some hooks on the cart. Now I have them a little bit off center because of the size of the bearings on each side. So the strings can just run smoothly around the bearings without having to narrow to the center. Screwing in place my hooks. Now I'm just going to measure the end of the motor. I'm just going to go into Fusion 360 and make this connector from the motor, and then we're going to make a disc around it with a notch in it to hold the string. The bigger you make this disc, the slower the cart will move. So I'm going to make mine pretty small because I can speed up video afterwards. Or you could just make several discs. Now just extrude it in a circle, and I'm just cutting through the motor mount, just saving the file, bringing it into Cura here, just going into settings and making sure slicing tolerances is enabled, and then I'm going to make sure it's set to inclusive so I can have the most accurate print possible. And there it is. One of the reasons I like using microwave motors is the fact that they seem to randomly pick one or the other direction. So by using a push switch like this, I can just continue to hit it and it will change directions every time I turn it on and off. Though sometimes it takes 2 or 3 tries to get it to go the direction you want. Now I need a piece of plastic that's fairly tough but still flexible enough to be movable for my switch. I want this switch to be able to be turned on and off but easily flicked to change directions. So just making sure it's got the right flexibility. Now just carving it nice and smooth. Pre-drilling it in place. Mounting it. And there, it slides on nice and clicks quite well for changing direction. Now to wire it in place, be very sure to make sure the wires aren't connected to a power outlet when you're doing this. Twisting them together. Adding just a touch of solder so there's no chance of them coming undone later. Taping all the joints. Now just going to glue this in place so it doesn't flip off. Here to test it. There it is, seems to be working good. And now for the string to pull the cart, cutting it to length, tying one end to the cart, wrapping it around the pulley, then around the other side. And now to make sure I get a good tension, I've just got an elastic band here. Just tied it to an elastic band and clipping it in place. Now to find center, because I'm going to be using GoPro mounts, I decided to just attach this to the center. And here is a camera mount for a phone. Just making sure it has just the right amount of friction so it won't turn on its own, but so I can still turn it. Turning it on, and there it is. Looks great. Thanks for watching. Please subscribe.